Thank you, Todd, and thank everybody for staying and not rushing off to open your Brazilian offices in light of that inspirational speech from President Gabriel. Excellencies, Minister, conference delegates. I'm going to speak very briefly so we can get on to the discussion, but I want to talk about the view from the responsible party in this particular case, just to remind you that the real issue here was the fatality of 11 workers on the drill rig, plus the consequential oil pollution going forward. And I'm really just going to run through the 5 biggest issues that we see and experience from our role as the responsible party, and what I would urge you to think about your organisations to help you prevent finding yourself in the same particular place. I will just say Jeff's helped me out of a small hole here, because I was going to talk about the management of relationships from the responsible party to all those agencies, but I think Jeff has eloquently told you of the issue of a responsible party on one side and 93 other bodies on the other side. And actually, I'm not just saying this because Jeff is here, but there was not a sliver of difference between us as the responsible party and the Coast Guard on the objectives of getting this cleaned up. And a lot of the issues were, as Jeff said, to do with all the other parties who wanted to be managers of this particular spill. So the Coast Guard are your friends in this particular issue. Jeff has spoken about the international efforts of this. As the responsible party, you're also responsible for bringing all the equipment in from around the world. I think we had to fly in for somewhere 62 countries to fly equipment into the Gulf, provision and securing of it. And Jeff has given you most of the numbers: 50,000 people, 6,500 vessels. I mean, a lot of those vessels are small, but they all need managing. They all need to be told where to go, and people. 4 main incident command centres, 19 sub-incident command centres. The responsible party's got to have its representative at all these locations, all these sites, all these transfer sites. You need a lot of your own bodies there to undertake your provision of the skills to do it. The 5 things I urge you to think about. Clearly, first is prevention. The last thing you want to do is to get into that. If throughout your best efforts you're still stuck, you need to think about containment, you need to think about relief wells, you need to think about spill response, and you need to think about crisis management. And I'm just going to talk briefly on each of those 5 things, and then we'll get into the group discussion. So, prevention. Clearly, drilling safety is the key lesson learned out of this. Blowout preventers, we're going to talk in the second section today about the technology of blowout preventers. The need to ensure that they're fit for scope in the water depth you're doing. Here we were down at 5,000 feet, a mile underwater, great pressures, great temperatures, etc. And are they really scaled and sized? And have you got independent verification of the equipment that you're putting down there, and the right number of control systems to make sure that they can adequately be prevented? The condition of the drilling rig, particularly when you're a contractor, is the contractee going to give you the level of assurance and ability to discharge their obligations? I mean, you are the responsible party, therefore you are liable for the contractor's business in this particular case. So in addition to drilling safety, have you got the procedures and technical protection that you need? President Gabriel spoke about following standards. Are we all confident that you have the right standards to which to follow? BP's got standards throughout. Most companies have got standards throughout, but are they the ones you really need at the time of the occasion to address the issue? BOP management I've spoken about. And one of the issues that's come out of here, it's sort of subject to ongoing investigation, is the quality of cement. And there is quite a lot of research going on at the moment about how that will be taken forward. But for those of you engaged in this, clearly the existing cementing procedures have turned out not to be satisfactory for the location depth going forward. So prevention, as the President said, follow the procedures, you'll be in good shape. However, on the let's hope it never happens again issue, containment. Immediate access to capping capability. You'll have all followed it, presumably on your television screens. The need to, with speed, get capping capability out of there, and collection systems when you've cap it. I mean, this, particularly the Macondo field, was coming out at a 3,000 to 1 gas to oil mix. There was a huge amount of gas coming out of the well, and you imagine whatever the flow rate was, that will be sorted out by the experts later. A huge amount of gas, and how do you collect that as it comes up and it's hydrating on the way, climbing up through 5,000 feet from the seabed to the surface? And how do you run complete multitude of operations with different parties and different characters going on to? And that simultaneous operations was probably the biggest new challenge faced. If you think about, you saw the video earlier, you've seen the number of vessels within a square mile of the center of it, and the vessel you saw with the flare coming off sat actually over the well, and it was flaring gas after it had been captured. There were 2 drilling rigs attached to the surface, to the bottom, as well as the Discovery Enterprise. There were other vessels tied to the seabed as they were holding floating risers. There were something like 16 ROV vehicles, all down at the bottom, all connected, spill response, etc. Within 1 square mile, there were 50 boats operating, including up to Suezmax shuttle tankers operating, collecting oil. I mean, it was a hugely complex operation. I mean, normally every of these things have 500-meter exclusion zones plus, and here you've put 50 giant units into 1 square mile, 60 miles offshore, and managing that without incident was actually one of the great unsung triumphs of the spill response. And having the right equipment and capabilities. Clearly technology has moved on, and we'll talk a bit about that in a minute. But making sure that you understand the well, the location, the access to equipment in the near regime, and what you need to bring in is one of the key kind of learnings out of this. And making sure you've got access to trained people. It's all right having 48,000 people on the payroll that you've got to allocate and task, but if they're not trained, you've got to bring in trainers to train them, to get them. The last thing you want is enthusiastic, keen, really committed amateurs running around actually doing more damage to themselves than they think. It's a big, big operation to manage, and you as the responsible party are managing this. All these other agencies are just telling you you need to do something. You need to manage it going forward. So let's prevent. If we've got to prevent, we've got to drilling technology. Third is relief wells. We actually started drilling the first relief well about 18 hours after the spill started. Relief wells are the traditional way of getting to blow out. And we happened to have a drilling rig only about 3 miles away waiting to do a second well, brought it in, started. And it was an astonishing operation. I mean, it went down, and you have to hit the very point where the well enters the field, within a metre or two. There'll be lots of experts in the room who know about this more than I. And they did it first time. It was an astonishing achievement to do it in the 112 days they did it. In actual fact, by the time it got there, all it did was confirm that the well had been killed by some of the top kill methods earlier. But nonetheless, it was a tremendous feat of technology by the company that carried that out. But we need to be able to do that better. When you get down at the end, to range, to find the target, you've got to pull the drill string out, go back in again, and that takes 2.5 days of time. So a lot of work going on technology to be able to find out in sort of real time, 5 or 6 hours, where you are and how you need to affect the drill tip to get through to the well. So lots of technology improvements to go there. Spill response. One of the you sort of start off on the spill response with the traditional things. You'll start with mechanical collection, principally skimming. Second will be chemical disbursements, which we used extensively both on the surface and at the wellhead. Lots of people were questioning why it was done at the wellhead. I mean, you had to do it at the wellhead, otherwise you'd be sitting in 3,000 cubic feet of gas coming up at the surface. You needed to dispel it at the wellhead to allow the operations to take place over the wellhead in order to do it. So, as long as you've got the right sort of dispersant technology, that was the reason for using it there. And historically, in situ burning has been considered to be the sort of least effective and sort of the last bastion of it. In this particular case, it was one of the most successful dispersal mechanisms. And if you look at that picture on the bottom right there, there's lots of pictures of these. It looks like sort of Hades hell of 18 or 19 individual fires going on calm days to do it. But it really was a very effective way of disposing of equipment and collection. And crisis management. As Jeff alluded to in those numbers, and as the responsible party, you are the body that has to find the people, find the experts, man all these positions, and run it. All these agencies and the Coast Guard are helping you, telling you that you're doing the right thing. They don't do the right thing. They help them tell you they do the right thing. They might fly their own independent oversight, but you are the person who's got to provide the numbers, the skills, the rest of it. And however much you think you've got crisis management licked down, and BP used to train extensively for it. I've been incident commander on drills, including worst case drills. You are never trained for an incident like this. And I would urge you that you need to think about all the talents in your organisation and being ready if you need to face something like that. It's the only way to do it. So, lastly, I think in addition to those 5 things, prevent, and the 4 post-incident issues, just think about the technology you've got, the skills you've got, the partners you use with, the contractors you work with, and hopefully you'll be able to respond in a more effective way than we did in this particular incident. Thank you for your time, everybody.